Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back once more to Vega Conflict. As with what I said last week in the description, this video is going to kick off the week, and it is a suggestions video for Kixeye. These are to be considered things like that. And the first topic is going to be the RPS system, the rock, paper, scissors system. I still see it as being weak, even though they did fix the issues with the daemon. And second, I would also like to point another thing out towards the end of this section, but first, let's get on to the first subject, the Altarian's defenses. Overall, they pale in comparison to the others, hands down. Let's just quickly take a look at them. They're supposed to go up against the Pharmacon. Well, let's compare the exact same type of defense, let's compare Spectral to Spectral, which is energy, and let's see the difference between the two. First off, Pharmacon is newer, so they should have the better defense or something, and that is their ability to phase. Well, let's take a look. Spectral Shell, repair time 36 minutes, 46 seconds. Energy reduction 75%, but it takes 25% more damage from every other target, every other damage type that is not energy. It also has a lower energy value of only 7,168. It also has a single counter chain effect with a defense of 90%, but it's classified as a shield and not an actual unique defense. Now let's take a look at the Spectral Shell. It has 65% energy reduction, 41 minute, 15 second repair time. It has 9,900 energy and a defense of 90% that cannot be bypassed. Right off the bat, it has superior defense in terms of the reduction. Now you may say that the 75% is better. It is, but it's only against the one damage type. That single damage type, and remember, the vast majority of fleets you fight, they're going to have varying damage types, so you can never protect yourself fully against any of them, especially if you're playing as the Altarians. Second, their defense. Since the shell isn't actually a shell, it is a shield, and every single shield from the plasma shield down to the standard shield can be bypassed, and anyone who's realized that can easily do the same thing to the Pharmacon, well, the Altarians, as what they've done with the Pharmacon. Equip your Pharmacon ships with extremely high shield bypass weapons, or have a shield bypass carrier with them. And that's all there is to it. You lose the carrier, but I mean, you could throw in effectively a no armor 30-minute or 50-minute repair ship. That's it. That's all the repair time you're going to take if you let them catch it. All the while you're dishing out and destroying all their shields and leaving them effectively destroyed, or applying extremely heavy damage over time effects underneath the shield. And I have several recommendations to actually resolve that. Let's get to the first one. The Altarian shells fall far too quickly and are treated as a shield and not as a unique defense type like the Pharmacon Screen and the Umbra's Ablative Armor. I have a few suggestions to remedy these negative aspects. First, add continuous shell regeneration for all the Altarian shield types to bolster their defense capabilities against Pharmacon vessels by ensuring an active defense continuously. The shells could feature shell regeneration rates of 0.333, you get the idea, it's repeating, percent at all levels. And that is for level 1, 2, and 3, it's all the same. So you stack 3 shields on a ship, or alternatively, how it could be 1% per shield level, and it remains constant at each level. So 1%, 1%, 1% of the total shield value. And that would stack, so if you have something, say the Bastion, it would regenerate all 3, well, it would regenerate 3% of the maximum shield's capacity per second. Actually, no, it wouldn't. it would still be regenerating 1% because you'd be stacking the shields. So no matter how you see it, it'd be 1% of the shields back every second. So it'd take 1 minute 40 seconds to fully recharge the shield. Second, allow the Altarian shields to regenerate from absolute zero, or more easily known as being depleted. Because they're a highly advanced species, and why wouldn't they have some form of reserve energy to be able to reactivate their shielding and continuously regenerate the recharge the shields, which are their primary form of defense against oncoming attacks. Second, remove the delay from the Altarian regeneration special and lower the values on the regeneration special at each level to 1%, 2%, and 3% for each level respectively. So in total, you could have a maximum of 4% shield regeneration for an Altarian ship, just to maintain it in a fight. Change the riposte overdrive generator activation from it taking 2,500 damage to any ship within its firing range receiving 2,500 damage to trigger the regeneration effect for the shields and for the shield defense bonus. Second, change the shell's defense type from shield to shell. Give them a unique defense type, just like what you've done with the Pharmacon, and just like what you've done with the Umbra. They're all of the same tier. I don't see why they shouldn't be treated the same. However, do not increase the amount of the shields that they have, because right now, the low amount actually does fairly well at times against certain scenarios, things like that. Now, how would the Umbra counter all of this? Well, change the Umbra shield bypass effect to shell bypass to correlate to the change of the shields becoming shells, and increase the amount of bypass by around twice the current amount. So even if the Altarians are regenerating 4% of the shields per second due to the regeneration effects, stuff like that, at least 50 or 60 or 75%, I think it should be a very high value of bypass from the Umbra against the Altarians, should be allowed. I think that it should just mangle the Altarians under their shield so that their shell will still be intact when the ship is destroyed. Alter all Umbra specials that offer shield bypass and change it to a shell bypass and increase the bypass, again increasing it by whatever percentage it is. So, you know, you could get up to 100%, well, not absolutely, it could get as close to as kicks I would allow. But these are just a few of the suggestions I have in mind to balance the Altarians against the Pharmacon, and balance the Umbra to still be a very powerful counter to the new Altarian shell buff change suggestions. That doesn't mean that they wouldn't still need fine-tuning, because even after you change all of that, you may still see the same problem of certain ships just being utterly crushed, because they lack certain defense types and things like that. And before anyone that is a heavy Pharmacon fan starts complaining that'll make them overpowered, that's the point. Altarian, if you think of it this way, we have an RPS system. Rock, paper, scissors. Whenever you play rock, paper, scissors, there is no saying, hey rock, you get to beat paper in these certain scenarios. No, it's an utterly, paper crushes rock every single time, just like rock crushes scissors. Scissors cut paper. There is no, hey, they get to do this. There is leeway in an RTS game to allow that, but to have a true RPS system, that's the way that I see it. And again, these changes would still have to be tuned to actually correlate to a superior defense. And again, you don't have to increase the amount of shell energy or anything like that, because it's fine the way it is now, especially after the changes, because they'll have effectively never-ending shields so long as the player plays it carefully. And with only a 4% regeneration per second, you can easily be out-damaged and lose all your shields, because if a ship, let's actually jump back into the game for a minute. If a ship such as one of my Bastions, let's just quickly take a look at how much shield health they have. 37,632. Alright, so by default, without a special, that's going to be 1% regeneration. Again, that's going to take a minute 40 seconds to regenerate, and as you can see, I don't use the regeneration effect on my ships because it's utterly useless. It reduces your effective shield amount. the recharge delay makes it not worthwhile, and things like that. And 4%, again, it's just 1/4 the time frame, so it'd take 25 seconds for it to fully recharge. And again, no delay means that they would have a vastly superior advantage over the Pharmacon, whereas the Umbra could still just completely bypass the shield shell and completely destroy the ship underneath. And that's kind of how I could have seen the RPS system working. By having the Umbra just completely bypass shells and ignore them, having the Pharmacon struggle to do anything against the shells, because I do like the idea that Kickside put forwards of the damage over time effects being reduced by the energy of the shells blocking 90% of it. However, as I said, if it's PvP, players can bypass it very, very easily. They can also increase the amount of health damage they do with fleet commanders and various other items, and effectively negate the effects of them. And I don't think that a new entire batch of Altarian ships should be released just to counter Pharmacon. Buff the ones we already have, focus on quality of life improvements for the rest of the year, and then start the new year fresh with the beginning of the announcement for the new faction, Tier 8, or whatever you're going to do. But those are my thoughts on those changes. Suggestions, things like that. On to the next subject, which is some quality of life improvements for vessel-based aspects of the game and the progression system. First, I would like to suggest that Kickstar's development team revisit the old factions and add new ships to coincide with the new classes that have been introduced into the game for each of the factions of the high tier. In examples, the Altarians, the battle cruisers, things like that. In this case, not the Altarians is a suggestion to add to low level. What I mean is the Dreadnoughts that were added to Tier 7, Tier 6.5, things like that. Battle cruisers, carry them all the way down to a researchable one, or in this case, since you don't get your first cutter while it's researchable, you get it from a blueprint. Add them as blueprint drops from certain fleets as you add them. So, just kind of sprinkle them in every now and then to show people that, hey, look, we're going to help you guys out. It just takes a little bit of time. And these types of things, it would open up new tactics and strategies, because you'd have varying ships that, if you try to mix and match certain ships, you lose effectiveness. And speaking on this subject, it's time that I mention what I said I was going to at the beginning. I've been playtesting a Cavalier Cutter and Renaissance Cruisers group, and it's interesting how easily the two ship classes completely commingle and work extremely well together. Having the Cavalier out in front to run down a Daemon in PvP, if the Daemon has stasis even the slightest bit, not only does it activate the overdrive, you can keep the stasis from being applied to the battle cruiser directly behind it. So all you have to do is just pay attention to the AoE of the ship and just rush the target and avoid and make sure your spacing is proper, so you're not going to get both the ships hit with the AoE from the net torpedo. And the advantage of the Cavalier, once its overdrive is activated, it regenerates a portion of its shield. And it's interesting seeing both of the extremely quick-moving ships working side by side. And I've already begun building Cavaliers, and this is something I didn't mention before. I have started building them, and I'm readily upgrading them, stuff like that, because before I saw no use to them because it was just a single ship rushing out, well, a group of single ships, but they lacked range and raw brute power. Well, in this case, you're going to be heavily arming them with shielding, armor, things like that, resistors to damage types you expect to take the most from, because you want them to close in and begin to crush your enemy. You want them to tank all the damage, but then hold the target still for the battle cruiser that is not trailing extremely far behind, right there into the fight. You want the Cavaliers to tank damage while the Renaissance cruisers, battle cruisers, sorry, crush everything. And thanks to the firing arc of the Renaissance, it's going to be a little bit more easy to maintain a fire control or effect or whatever you want to call it on your targets. Now, back to the little ship recommendations. Okay, I mentioned I wanted to have them add dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and a carrier for the Xeno division to even it all out, so every single faction will have the same set of ships available in terms of classes and things like that. So you can experience, playtest, and learn through the ships. Naturally, they shouldn't all be the same as they progress, as with what we had with the original cruisers, ships like that. They just got stronger and stronger. Adding a more unique playstyle to every single ship would be more interesting because you could see various aspects that you may not have noticed before. And with that said, it is time we talk about revamping the game's progression system and changing away from its current path to something far more clean and clear. Right now, the development team has mentioned a few times that they want to get players to the Xeno division in 10 days. Okay, well that involves time tokens, because again, I don't classify a player as being fully invested in a single faction or a tier until they have a minimum of 3 ships or more from that faction. And I hardly classify as being within the...
Yes.
I think it's this one. Yeah, I hardly classify as being in the Pharmacon faction because I only have a total of 6 of their ships. Except for most of them were things that I pulled out of a trash can. The current system revolves around strikes to advance within, which forces lower level players to wait for certain strikes instead of playing the game at their own leisure. So they have to wait around for certain items that they may need to advance or may find more easy to advance with, rather than play, earn what they need, and log out. Well, what I have in mind is something far more simple in terms of understanding, but will require extensive coding if it is considered. So what I have in mind? Well, it actually stems from the Campaigns tab, but more importantly, the bare-bones structure that they provided and will be built upon what was already in place. Let's go take a look at what I mean. The Campaigns tab has been empty for a very long time, and the campaign's been inactive. There's just been nothing to them at all. And the last time we saw campaigns, they were completely overpowered and just not really worth your time, because you could get the same technology in a feature event at vastly reduced repair times, and you weren't pushed or pressed against a time constraint. Pardon me, just getting a drink. But what I have in mind actually stems from the campaigns. First, target balancing. They should or could be tailor-made fleets corresponding with the campaign's factions, such as Vega ships, for Vega ships. Second, the prizes involve all vessels, weapons, specials that were introduced with the single faction under a single prize redemption screen accessible via tabs that will be used through various aspects of it. And the campaign screen itself will remain similar to what it is now, but it will add a few of the minor changes that will make it seem more like the strikes and things like that. And what I mean by that is tabs. Under each individual strike, well, in this case the campaign, you'll have individual tabs. Your first tab will be your targets, where you can pick and choose which target you attack, and it'll automatically launch the attack just like with the original campaigns. And what I mean by this is the tabs will ensure that you can have certain items. Well, they'll be used to help sort out prizes, blueprints, and things like that for the tabs that aren't used for the combat. So, blueprints in one tab, while pre-built vessels, reusable items, rare ships such as dreadnoughts, or anything else that they may want to add in the other tabs. You'll have 3 tabs in total. The blueprints tab, which is where you'll go to collect everything that you can mass produce as much as you want without having to gather up a absurdly amount of reusable items to fit, because you'll have weapons. You'll be able to produce the ships, you'll be able to produce the specials and everything like that, directly from the cost of resources. This will ensure all tech is always accessible at the player's own pace and will enable a safer, lower level experience up to the Axis, which is more or less where I had thought about cutting it off, because we're currently still with Tier 7, and I didn't want to bring them into the campaign or anything like that because most of their tech is still being circled around high-level events. This would also help clean up the primary strikes and get them out of the way, as well as clean up the sectors so that planets are cleaner during planet strike, sectors are cleaner during sector strike, and sectors are cleaner during alien strike. The only thing that would still be left is time token riots out in sector, and the I can never remember the name of the event. That's how minuscule it is to me, but I mean, for all you lower levels, it would be extremely challenging. But it's for your markup grades. It's the crafting event. That's what it was. It's the crafting event. And it's just one of the aspects that you clear out all the strikes, move them into individual campaigns, and along with putting them over there in the campaigns tab, you get to do something else, something unique. You can add storyline, dialogue, and things like that to the campaign. So similar to how the campaigns played out before, where there was dialogue and stuff like that you could read through, because certain targets you would attack them and it would give you a heads up of such and such being within the fleet or it being unknown and things like that. You could add it so that every now and then you might get a quote from Sybil or Burr speaking or something like that, just depending on the faction. But that's what I have in mind for that. It's fairly straightforward and everything like that, and I just think it would be a neat addition to help clean up the game, and Kixeye could still push through with their idea to help get the player base to level 10, well, to the Xeno division within 10 days through that ideal way, because it would reset once every... Actually, it wouldn't be resetting. You'd be working for the prizes, and it would be continuously storing up points. You know, you'd have a massive amount of points that you could just spend to buy. And what I would say is remove the limit for time tokens and things like that. You can buy as many as you want within these stores. So all you have to do is just farm for the prizes, well, specifically for the intel, via the individual targets. And it would become an extremely easy way to make resources as well. And then during primary events, stuff like that, you could see PvP in the sector and stuff like that. It would also open up more space to allow unique events, small one-day events, to be run throughout the course of the week, where strike would otherwise be active, where a player would be forced to pick or choose which they want to partake in. Well, in this case, it would be a matter of you can put off your campaign advancement because it's not going to stop. It's just going to be put on hold while you go over to the unique event. And finally, for this section, I would like to suggest reworking the entire system of mark upgrading vessels to coincide with that of tier 6.5 and above. I see it as being vastly better for the progression of ships. Sips. Wow. Do I speak English? I do not think so at this point. But it is better for the progression of ships in their individual tiers over how it currently is, which is chance-based, where you get a box and you have a chance of getting a blueprint that you need. In this way, you'd get what you need, but you'd have to farm up more of the boxes. You know, you could have a 1 in 5 chance, or you could just farm up 5 boxes and have what you need. That is all I have to say about this subject for now. Go ahead and leave your thoughts about these subjects thus far below in the comment section. And finally, next I would like to suggest some quality of life improvements for the UI. That's right, everybody, I want to see changes to the UI. The game looks good, the UI looks clean, but it's not perfect. And the vast majority of us that play the game know that it's not perfect, and if anyone else has come from other RTS games, you'll be used to using a mini-map for actual in-combat experiences, such as interacting with it and sending units to a certain location without you having to directly view said location and then click somewhere on the map to send them there. These changes all revolve around things like that. A rework for the minimap in combat to be scalable via dragging the outer rim of the minimap and allowing for movement orders through the interactions with the minimap. First off, the scalability should have always been a feature so that people could choose to just completely turn into a little box in the corner so that they have a complete view of their screen, or make it so it takes up half the screen so that they can see what's going on to the north of them without having to completely look up. because just taking a quick glance down to the bottom left, you can see that certain ships are coming in while you remain focused on the fight at hand. Change how deployment of a player's fleet functions by doing away with locked formations. And what I mean by that is the formations that we currently have that we get to choose from. And that is fleet formations like these. I don't see them as being viable. I never have, and I never understood why they were done this way when they could have done any number of other ways. And what I came up with was add the ability to produce custom formations based on an interactive grid under the Fleet Management tab, enabling players to spawn in with the precise formations they wish to from the start of the battle, instead of starting by repositioning and setting up, wasting the first times they could be using advancing, retreating, or alternatively sending out a ship to start slowing down certain ships or destroying certain ships, then falling back to the formation to prepare for an all-out fight. The grid's maximum size should coincide with dangerous deployment zones, such as the spawn zone in certain targets that have nebulas. So there would be no more line formation issues, where if you use them against certain targets, your units on the two outer edges of the line formation spawn in nebulas and die. This change is mainly to simplify the start of combat with less initial setup and more focus on your choice of how to engage your opponent, improve the and how to engage your opponent. So you could choose a defensive setup if you wind up in PvP a lot, so you could have two forward ships that are extremely high up on your point grid, and let's just say it's like a 6-point grid. That means 6 down, 6 across, for a total of 36 points that you can choose from, all within a very tight sector, so it's all fairly easy to use. So you can have a line formation, but it would be more tightly woven than the line formation that's actually in the game. And the reason I thought of these was because certain fleets you can just spawn them in, and then you set them up fairly easily, but you still have to spend time setting them up, all the while the AI is closing in, and as we all know, the AI has never been balanced, and especially with the DDoS targets, and I wasn't going to bring this up, but a few people I noticed had been having the problem before with the segfault randomly retargeting during combat, and there was a few people I watched it do this to, and don't feel bad. A lot of you realized the same thing I did fairly quickly. It was targeting the 6th ship in the fleet. However, if you take it out and put it in the 5th fleet, or the 5th slot, or anything like that, it will still continue to retarget. It just won't be as often, because I've moved my fleet and ships around a few different times. And every now and then, it would just completely disregard certain ships and go after a certain ship, even if that said ship had no weapons. It was like a cargo ship, and it would just completely disregard ships that were firing on it, even though they were clearly a threat to it. Okay, on to the final thing for this little list, and then we can all talk about it in the comments section. Improve the information panel or tab when viewing certain fleets' droppable loot by displaying the base chance of the items and the number of items dropped. And what I mean by that is, if you were to view an in-planet fleet, let's actually jump in 1508 here real quick, and you were to go to a level 20 or above, let's find one. Alright, the VSEC does drop stuff. Okay, so level 20 and above, and what I mean is this tab right here. This tab right here, this little thing, where you can get ships, blueprints, things like that. Do away with formations, as I said, but display the chance that you have the blueprint being dropped. As well as for reusable items, display in-game, live, the number of drops, so it'll say X through X, because that's how it's been thus far, so you have a chance of getting this through this. And the point of this change is just to help add so people will understand how many they need, what the chance of them dropping is to start with, and also have them actively and reactively display the current value of the chance to drop individual blueprint fragments. Understand? Alright. That is all I have to say for now, everybody. Go ahead and chat, see more or less what you can come up with about these ideas, thoughts like that. Add your own to this list as well, because this is a suggestions video. This is just mainly for us to discuss what we would like to see happen in the game, suggest a few different things, as well as suggest balance changes, things like that. But that's going to be it, everybody. If you liked the video, or if you have any interest in more videos like that, leave a like on the video. Go ahead and comment what your favorite suggestion was, as well as try and suggest something for yourself. So maybe push to have them add dreadnoughts all the way down to a researchable tier, or something like that. If you want to see more content like this, most definitely subscribe. There's more stuff like this on the channel. There's concept ideas, there's various videos in ARC, there's various videos in Total Annihilation. I haven't done a Command & Conquer one that I can think of. I've done Supreme Commander. I've done all kinds of games. There's a little bit for everybody here. But that's going to be it, everybody. Stay safe out there in the void, and as always, I'll see you later.